Hi, today we are going to learn how to balance a chemical equation. So, as you can see on the screen, this is an example of a chemical equation. And in particular, as we have discussed in class, this is the burning of hydrocarbons. In that oxygen reacts with a substance that contains only carbon and hydrogen to give us carbon dioxide and water. So this type of equations are what we would term as the burning of hydrocarbons. Hey, a chemical equation gives us many valuable information, and the substances that we see on the left hand side of a chemical equation are what we call the reactants. They are the starting material of the chemical reaction, and they will react together to give us the products which are found on the right hand side of the chemical equation. The arrow that we see, you can read it as give. So the reactants react together to give us the products. And we need to take note that for the arrow, we only use a single arrowhead and we do not give it fanciful designs such as we only use a single head, simple design arrow. The red numbers that you see in front of the compounds are what we call the coefficients, and they are added to chemical equations in order to balance the chemical equation. In balancing of chemical equations, we only add in coefficients and we do not add in subscripts, because subscripts are part of a chemical formula of a substance, and modifying it would change the chemical composition of the compound. Hence, we do not add subscript, and we would only add or edit the coefficients in an equation, and that is the red numbers that you see in this equation. Now, with all this in mind, we are now ready to tackle an example of a chemical equation. You may pause the video as you try to balance this equation. As mentioned in class, the first step is to list down the elements present in the equation. And as this is the special type of chemical equation, that is the burning of hydrocarbons, we will list it down in order of carbon, followed by hydrogen, and then oxygen. Next, we will count the number of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen on the left and right hand side and update it in our table. The next step is to balance the elements, and we will begin with the first row. To balance carbon, we can add a coefficient of 5 to the carbon on our right hand side, and then we update our table. And we must be careful when we add in the coefficient, because this 5 does not just affect the number of carbon atoms, it will also affect the number of oxygen atoms. So as we go along, we need to be mindful of what the coefficient does to the number of atoms and update our table accordingly. And so now we will have 11 oxygen atoms on our right hand side. After the first row is balanced, we will move on to the second row. To balance the number of hydrogen, we will add in the coefficient of 6 to our water molecule on our right hand side, and then we update our table. But in adding this coefficient, we also modify the number of oxygen atoms on our right hand side of the equation. Hence, we need to update our table, and now we have 16 oxygen on the right hand side. To finalize the balancing, we will need to balance number of oxygen, and to do it, we will add in a coefficient of 8 on the left hand side. And there you go, this is a balanced equation.